Cellular respiration. Let's talk a little bit about what cellular respiration is. Respiration is normally the process of breathing in and breathing out. So if somebody has respiration, how are they breathing? So let's imagine a guy collapses, an ambulance shows up, and the guy in the ambulance is on a cell phone or something. He's talking to the hospital, and he says his blood pressure is 130/80, and his respiration is shallow, meaning, in other words, he's breathing very, very lightly. Or his respiration is very labored. Respiration means breathing. It literally means taking in stuff and getting out stuff. Cellular level, inside of a tiny little microscopic cell, respiration means this. It means food energy is released in the presence of oxygen. When food energy is released in the presence of oxygen. So, respiration, cellular respiration. It occurs in an organelle called the mitochondria. Again, that's the powerhouse of the cell. That's the place where energy is made. In plants and animals, this requires glucose and oxygen. Well, that's perfect because we've made glucose, and that's why humans have to breathe in oxygen, and that's why plants produce oxygen, so that they can then use this energy. And it gives off carbon, water, and energy in the process. There are three parts to cellular respiration. There's a part called glycolysis. There's a part called the citric acid cycle, called the Krebs cycle. And the last one is called the electron transport chain. We're going to walk through this a little bit. It may seem a little confusing. Hopefully we'll go over it and explain it to you so that you can finally get what we're talking about. First part, glycolysis. One molecule of glucose is broken into two 3-carbon molecules of pyruvic acid. Okay? Pyruvic acid is 3 carbons long. Remember that in our glucose we have C6H12, 6 carbons. So it breaks up, instead of having 6 carbons, it breaks up into 3 and 3. There it is, pyruvic acid. 2 molecules of ATP provide the energy, and 4 molecules of ATP end up being produced. So I spend 2, and I end up getting 4. That's a pretty good deal. If I told you, you give me $2 today, and you come back tomorrow, I'll give you 4, you would think that's a great deal. And you'd say, yeah, here's $100. I'm waiting for my $200 to come back tomorrow. Yeah, that's a great deal. You double your energy, okay? But it's not the best part of cellular respiration. So we use 2, we make 4. What about the citric acid cycle known as the Krebs cycle? Let's take a look at this one. In a series of reactions, the pyruvic acid is broken down into carbon dioxide. It's discovered by Hans Krebs. That's why it's called the Krebs cycle. NADH, FADH2, and ATP are formed. Remember, those are my energies. High energy electrons are also produced. Electrons are used to convert the adenosine diphosphate into adenosine triphosphate. So we need to have those electrons to make that ATP. So let's look at our totals. One glucose molecule can produce 36 ATP molecules after it goes through cellular respiration. Wow, that's a pretty good deal. Without oxygen, glucose can only produce 2 ATP molecules during glycolysis and none during the Krebs cycle and electron transport without oxygen. Cells complete either alcoholic fermentation or lactic acid fermentation. So let's review. If we have glucose without oxygen, glucose can only produce 2 ATP in our first one, which was called glycolysis. So we start 2, we end up making 4. But check this one out. We can make a total of 36 in the citric acid cycle. So if you gave me $1 and I said, come back tomorrow, I'll give you 36, that's even better than doubling your money. That's 36 times as much. That's really the good way to go, right there. And here's kind of what it looks like. Okay? So glycolysis on the left, I use sugar and I make 2 ATP. I spend 2 ATP, but I make 4, so I get a net profit of 2. In the Krebs cycle, I can make a total of 2 ATP. And in the electron transport chain, that's the money maker. That's where I take 6 water, 6 carbon dioxide as my products, and I end up making 32 ATP. So notice this is also best scenario. So my total would be 32, plus 2 more is 34, plus 2 more is 36. So I can make a total of 36 ATP by doing all 3 of these. And here's my formula up above. Sugar plus oxygen ends up making 6 carbon dioxide, 6 waters, and 36 ATP of energy. Now again, that is ideal. The actual number produced is probably closer to 28 or 29. We don't always get exactly 32, 2, and 2. That's like best case scenario. Okay, you're going to lose a little bit because of chemicals that don't react. You're going to lose a little bit in the process. Simply, that's just how things work. We almost never get 100%. Okay, but that's pretty darn good making what we're making. All right, here's another way of showing the same picture. I'm going to move my thing down here. Same picture as before. 2 in glycolysis, 2 in the citric acid cycle, and about 32 or 34 in the electron transport chain. For a total of about 36 or 38 ATPs. Again, that's best scenario. So more than likely it's closer to 29 or 30 in all actual purposes. Okay? All right. All right, let's finish up our notes now talking a little bit about fall coloration and wilting. You should be in your note packet on page number 17. Just 2 more pages to go here. So let's talk about coloration. Why do leaves turn colors? Well, go ahead and take a guess. Maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong. Let's see what we come up with. The changes in fall are triggered by changes in daylight. So it's not necessarily the temperature. It's the amount of sunlight that a plant gets over the day. Okay? That's why, if you're living close to the equator, very often a lot of those green plants don't change colors in fall because they're constantly getting enough sunlight, even though they're farther away in our trip around the sun. We may be further away. They're still at the equator, which is facing right toward or directly toward the sun. So in the northern hemisphere, we're tilted away and we're further away, so we get less daylight, which is why we're going to have something coming up very soon, daylight saving time, where we adjust our clocks. Remember that in the winter, when you go home, it's like dark at like 4 in the afternoon. It gets really dark. And you remember also in the summer, when we did have things like the 4th of July and Summerfest, you could stay out till 9, 9:30 at night and it would still be daylight, right? So the thing that causes leaves to change colors is the amount of daylight, not the temperature. People are going to put that down on the test. It's going to be wrong. It is not the fact that it gets colder. Getting colder is a side effect of less daylight. But what causes leaves to change color in fall is less daylight, less sunlight energy. What happens is an abscission layer forms between the base of the petiole and the stem. This is like a cutoff point. It stops everything from going back and forth. It's like closing the door, saying nothing can get through anymore from the petiole to the stem. What happens is it prevents materials from being able to go in and go out of the leaf. So the leaf is no longer getting nutrients, and the leaf is no longer shipping nutrients out. So it's kind of stuck. And when that happens, let's see what else. This causes chlorophyll to begin to deteriorate. Again, the chlorophyll is the thing that changes sunlight into energy. And when it's not getting any materials like its nutrients that it needs, the chlorophyll deteriorates. All right. When chlorophyll deteriorates, other pigments that were hidden by the chlorophyll are now able to be seen. So here's a great question. At fall, when you see all those brilliantly colored leaves that are orange and purple and blue and yellow and all kinds of beautiful colors in the fall, people say, where did those colors come from? Guess what? They were always there. They were always there. The only difference was they were covered up by so much of the green chlorophyll that the green color drowned them all out. It would be like wearing a bright orange or bright red t-shirt, but if you're wearing a green coat over top, all you're going to see is the green. Same thing for the leaf. The leaf has the orange or the yellow or the red or the blue pigmentation in it, but because there's so much photosynthesis going on, there's so much chlorophyll being reacted with, that the only thing that shines out is the bright, bright green color. But when the chlorophyll starts to deteriorate, and the green color no longer starts to shine out, then the green color fades and fades and fades, then guess what? The natural color that was always inside the leaf in the first place, that would be the red or the orange or the yellow or the blue or the purple, whatever color it was, that begins to show forth, and we see the leaf's actual, true, natural colors. Pretty interesting. Chlorophyll is responsible for the green color. Xanthophyll is responsible for the yellowish color. Keratin, that's going to be an easy one to remember. Keratin, even though it says yellowish orange, I just want you to write down orange. So keratin is orange. That's what makes carrots orange in color, keratin. And then the last one is anthocyanin. Anthocyanin. That's blue. Even though it says red, blue, purple, I want you to think of blue. Cyanin is blue. And there's two things to help remember blue. So in the 1950s and 60s, they made lots of movies like spies, going from one country to another, Russia to America. And if you were a spy and you had all kinds of secrets and you got caught, what's going to happen is they were going to interrogate you and force you to tell them all your secrets. So if you signed up to be a spy, you knew that this was part of the deal. If you got caught, you would kill yourself before being interrogated and giving away all your secrets. And what they would often do is they would hide, maybe in like a false tooth, a little cyanide pill. A cyanide is a kind of chemical that's poisonous. And what they would do is when they were caught, they would flip open the tooth with their tongue or something, take out the pill, bite down on it, and they would die. And you knew it was cyanide poisoning because the person's lips would turn blue in color. Blue lips meant that you killed yourself with cyanide. Another one, if you have a color printer at home hooked up to your computer where you can print colors, you have 3 different colors of ink in addition to black. You have magenta, that's the fancy term for the red. You have yellow, which is, of course, yellow. And blue, but they don't call it blue. If you want to replace your blue, you have to replace the ink called cyanin or cyanine. So that means blue. Cyan sometimes is what it's called. Cyan literally means blue. So hopefully you're going to remember that. Carrots are yellow, or orange. Carrots are orange. And then chlorophyll is green, and then the last one, xanthophyll, is yellow. Xantho yellow. Xantho yellow. Okay, those will be on the test, so make sure you know the 4 different colors, and which ones are responsible for what. Let's talk about falling leaves. Why is it that leaves fall? The enzyme cellulase weakens the cell wall of the abscission layer. So the abscission layer forms, cuts everything off, no longer can get through. The chlorophyll dies, the leaf changes color, and what happens is the cell wall ends up getting weak. The leaf breaks off under its own weight or with the help of a wind. It's literally so heavy it can no longer support itself when the cell wall gets weakened. The protective layer of cork cells formed at the base of the petiole produce a leaf scar on the branch. So there's a little tiny scar on the branch where the leaf was, and that kind of seals it the same way your body seals a cut by just healing up over itself. And then the leaf falls to the ground and dies. It's terrible. But anyway. Okay, wilting and watering. Not all water taken in by the plant is used. So we have to water our plants on a regular basis. Oftentimes, watering is necessary. Much water escapes through a process called transpiration. Water leaving through the stoma. Remember we had those leaves and they had those round cells on the stoma, and the stoma could open and close? And let's imagine that a plant was in an area where it was very, very dry and it wasn't getting a lot of water. What would happen is it would close that stoma and hang on to all of that water that it got so that it doesn't lose or waste any of them. However, if it's in an area where it's getting lots and lots of water and it's getting kind of hot, what it'll do is it'll open it up and let some of that transpire water escape through the stoma. So a stoma is how it monitors the rate of water loss. And there are some things that are factors that affect the rate of transpiration. So some water is used for nutrients for the plant. Other things of water, other parts of the water are used for transpiration. Humidity, how humid it is, that means literally how much water is in the air. More water in the air means the leaf is going to let go of some of its water. Temperature, intensity of sunlight, wind speed, the amount of CO2 in the air, and the amount of soil water available. All these things, all these things affect the rate of transpiration. So when it's really, really hot for the temperature, less transpiration, it's going to hold on to that water. If sunlight gets really intense and makes it hotter, it's going to hold on to all that extra water. If there's lots of CO2 in the air, it's going to hold on to some of that water so it can create more cellular respiration. And the amount of soil. If I have lots and lots of soil water available, I can go ahead and get rid of some of the water in transpiration. I'm not going to be quite so tight with it, and the reason is I've got lots of water in the soil. I can still get my nutrients. But what happens is the guard cells are important in controlling this rate of perspiration. That's the guard cell. Opens up or closes, letting water in or out. And here's one of the aspects. When there's a lot of water in the plant, the guard cells become turgid and the stomata opens, allowing water to go in and out because the plant already has lots of water. Doesn't need to keep it. However, if water is moving out of the guard cell faster than it can be replaced, the guard cells then will close up and close the stoma and hold on to the water so it doesn't lose too much. Wilting. Wilting occurs when more transpiration is occurring than water getting into the plant. So what does that mean? It means it's losing more water than it's gaining. So plants always have to have this water balance. Same for us, human beings. When it's really hot outside and you're in the sun and you're exercising, you're going to drink a lot more water. I got to maintain my water levels. Plants need to do the same thing. Well, what happens is if we're not maintaining our water levels, then we can dehydrate. We can get overheated. Same for a plant. When a plant can't maintain its water levels, it ends up wilting. Same thing as like a plant dehydrating. Temporary wilting can occur on a hot day when a plant is in the sun. The sun causes more water to be lost than the plants can get from its roots. When the plant is in the shade, it can catch up and the cells once again become turgid and they open back up. But otherwise the stoma cells close up and hold on to all that water so it doesn't lose it. In permanent wilting, there's usually a drought or poor retention of soil water, so the plant cannot replace any of the water lost through transpiration. So what happens is a plant may wilt, and your mom says, oh, you've got to make sure and water that plant today, it's wilting. Well, if you don't water it, don't water it, don't water it, then eventually it leads to something called permanent wilting, where the damage is so serious that even if you give it water now, it's too late. The plant is not going to make it. It's going to end up dying. That's called permanent wilting. It can't replace it fast enough. So plants will eventually die if there is permanent wilting.